Headlines of VTV News. Prime Minister chairs regular November government meeting. HSBC projects Vietnam's GDP to grow more than 5% in 2023. And later on in our world news, EU warns of huge risk of terrorist attacks.
Broadcasting from Hanoi, the capital of Vietnam. VTV News starts right now.
Hello there, it's 3 p.m. local time and this is VTV News broadcast live from Hanoi. You're with me, Lina Pham, and here's the top news of the hour. According to delegates at the regular government meeting in November chaired by Prime Minister Phạm Minh Chính, the socio-economic situation in November continued to show positive progress. Compared to October, the Industrial Production Index increased by 3% and international visitors increased by 11%. Over the course of 11 months, the Consumer Price Index increased by 3.22%. The budget revenue is estimated to reach 95% of the target, exceeding the set goal of the entire year. The trade surplus is nearly $26 billion. The disbursement of public investment capital reached more than 65% of the plan, which is 6.8% higher than the same period last year. The total registered foreign direct investment capital in 11 months reached nearly $29 billion, a 15% increase compared to the same period last year, with newly registered FDI capital increasing by 42.4%. The realized FDI capital reached $20.25 billion, an increase of 3%. Prime Minister Phạm Minh Chính also highlighted some shortcomings and limitations, such as remaining inflationary pressure and the likelihood of an increase in bad debts. The Prime Minister proposed focusing on promoting 3 new driving forces, strengthening intra-regional links, fostering regional and international partnerships, and developing science, technology, and innovation to support emerging industries such as semiconductor chip production, hydrogen technology, climate change response, energy conversion, green growth, and the circular economy. On the morning of December the 6th, the chairman of the Vietnamese National Assembly, Vương Đình Huệ, and his counterpart, Sejom Phonvihan, met with Laos alumni and teachers at T78 Friendship School. Both the National Assembly chairman of Vietnam and Laos expressed their joy when they met the teachers and student alumni of T78 Friendship School, which has educated the largest number of Lao students in Vietnam. They expressed hope that the students of the T78 Friendship School will continue to follow the example of their predecessors and contribute to the people-to-people exchange and friendship between Vietnam and Laos. The 13th conference session of the 10th tenure Ho Chi Minh City People's Council, which is a regular year-end meeting for the period 2021 to 2026, was officially opened on December the 6th. The conference is expected to last until December the 8th, with a focus on reports related to the city's welfare works. Notably, the total product in the area increased by more than 5.8%. Total tourism revenue increased by 22%, and public passenger transport volume increased by more than 19%. However, technical barriers such as green growth and digital transformation have impacted domestic production. Ho Chi Minh City consists mostly of small and medium-sized enterprises, which are vulnerable to external shifts. The investigation and handling of several major economic crimes have had a strong impact on production and consumption activities. The meeting is expected to span 3 days. During this meeting, the City People's Council will also collect votes of confidence for positions elected by the People's Council. At the Hanoi People's Council meeting held on Tuesday, environmental pollution and fire prevention were among the issues that received the most attention from the deputies. More on this to follow.
Due to severe water pollution, people are reluctant to use tap water directly or consume vegetables that they grow themselves. This is a concern shared by many Hanoi deputies. who are urging the city to prioritize the development of practical solutions to address this issue.
In the past, people used to rely on water on the Nhue River for irrigation. However, the river has now become heavily polluted. As a result, people face many difficulties in finding a clean water source for their vegetables.
People have a strong desire to access a water source for their agricultural practices and aquaculture farming. Therefore, the city must take decisive measures to mitigate environmental pollution.
Presently, Hanoi has approximately 160,000 facilities that fall under fire prevention management. Out of these, over 8,000 facilities are deemed to be at a critical risk of fire. Therefore, it is imperative for Hanoi to enhance its efforts in fire prevention and rescue, particularly during the development of the city's planning.
We can explore the design of a small-sized fire engine that can easily navigate narrow alleys to reach a fire. Hanoi's project on fire prevention and rescue with the vision towards 2030 must align with the city's planning to ensure consistency among the city's fire prevention and firefighting facilities.
During the 4-day meeting, participants will also discuss questions related to traffic and urban issues.
On Wednesday morning, the Hanoi People's Council announced the results of the votes of confidence for 28 positions that were elected by the Municipal People's Council. Following the announcement, the Hanoi People's Council is scheduled to pass a resolution confirming the results of the vote of confidence for the elected position holders. Now moving on to other economic news, according to a recent comment made by HSBC Bank, Vietnam's GDP growth for this year is forecast to be over 5%. This growth is mainly driven by domestic economic activities such as retail, consumption, services, and tourism. The country continues to attract foreign direct investment or FDI with an increase in newly registered capital. In the past 11 months, the total FDI has increased by nearly 15% compared to the same period last year. While import and export activities have seen a slight decline, industrial production is gradually recovering. The total volume of imported and exported goods through the Móng Cái and Quảng Ninh international border gates has exceeded 1.4 million tons since the beginning of the year, representing a nearly 75% increase compared to the same period last year. At the Bắc Luân II border gate, an average of nearly 2,500 tons of goods are cleared daily. The main export goods include fruits, cassava flour, seafood, and dried seeds. Furthermore, nearly 4 million people have entered and exited through the Móng Cái border gate. Trading bank accounts on social media and using these accounts to illegally circulate money, particularly funds obtained through deception by fraudsters, is a concerning issue. It is crucial to take immediate action to prevent and track the flow of fraudulent money in order to protect people's assets.
Social media groups have become trading platforms for both unauthorized and authentic bank accounts, enticing users with tempting advertisements. Within these groups, complete packages are even sold, including phone numbers, citizen identification numbers, and bank accounts, all priced at only $20 to $40 each. The police have discovered that the suspects confess to purchasing bank accounts under the names of individuals who are not the owners.
I joined several groups on Facebook to purchase fake accounts using various names in order to commit fraud.
According to the police investigation, once fraud victims transfer money to an account owned by the scammer proceeds to circulate the funds through various bank accounts or creates electronic wallet accounts for additional circulation. A representative from the State Bank of Vietnam explained that there are cases where individuals open accounts and then sell or rent them out. Alternatively, the deceivers forge documents based on leaked personal information and proceed to open new accounts.
The SBV is planning to collaborate with the Ministry of Public Security in order to authenticate chip-based citizen data for the purpose of identifying the account owner and transaction creator. Following that, the SBV will revise regulations pertaining to transaction authentication.
By early July next year, banks are expected to be mandated to utilize biometric authentication for money transfer transactions that exceed specific transaction limits.
Credit institutions continue to enable their customers to transfer money to organizations or individuals. As a result, credit institutions must shoulder certain responsibilities.
Several banks have implemented stringent measures to prevent individuals from transferring money through online fraud schemes in recent times. However, the incidents that have been successfully prevented only represent a small fraction when compared to the ongoing cyber fraud cases, which involve significant amounts of money being misappropriated from people.
And before we move to the next part of VTV News, let's check out how the Vietnam đồng is weighed against other currencies in the world market today. Coming up next, localities drive forest conservation towards net zero target. And Cà Mau delights tourists with back to nature adventures. The northern and north-central regions continue to experience cold weather, while rain and thunderstorms are expected in the south-central from Quảng Trị to Quảng Ngãi. The northwestern region will see the lowest temperature of 15 to 18 degrees Celsius. In the northeastern provinces, the temperatures can drop to 15 to 18 degrees Celsius and even below 13 degrees Celsius in mountainous areas. The area from Hà Tĩnh to Thừa Thiên Huế will see moderate and heavy rain and thunderstorms. Now, Cà Mau has approximately 300,000 hectares of aquaculture area, with shrimp forest farming covering 1/4 of the total area. This model provides sustainable incomes and contributes to the preservation of the province's forest cover. The local authorities are planning to establish high-quality farming areas and aim to maintain and obtain additional organic shrimp certifications from international organizations.
In his 60s, this farmer has spent approximately 20 years practicing shrimp farming under the mangrove canopy. Although this model does not bring in a sudden spike in earnings, it has helped him save enough to live a comfortable life in his old age. Annually, these shrimp ponds bring him a sustainable revenue of $10,000.
Practicing shrimp farming helped me maintain a stable job with a steady income.
The income generated from shrimp farming in mangrove forests is enough to cover the living expenses of farming households. The annual revenue can reach up to $12,000. Even in the event of a harvest failure, they still manage to earn an income of approximately $10,000.
The entire Cà Mau province currently has 80,000 hectares of shrimp forest farming. The farming process must comply with strict environmental standards, including a requirement for mangrove coverage rate of at least 60% of the total farming area.
To gain the trust of consumers, shrimp growers and distributors must ensure that the quality and safety of their shrimp products adhere to international standards.
Cà Mau's organic shrimp product has obtained 8 certifications from countries and organizations around the world. The environmentally friendly shrimp farming practices in Cà Mau have a dual effect, providing locals with a stable livelihood and helping to preserve forest coverage against coastal erosion.
On December the 5th morning, a complex of the first 4 made-in-Vietnam electrolysis models was shipped to Saudi Arabia for the large hydrogen plant in the country. The Vietnam Machinery Installation Corp, a joint stock company, or Lilama, is one of the first enterprises in the world to participate in the global green hydrogen production supply chain. Electrolysis models produced by Vietnam for the NEOM Green Hydrogen project in Saudi Arabia use 100% renewable energy sources from wind and solar power to provide 600 tons of green hydrogen per day to replace fossil energy sources and reduce CO2 emissions. According to the plan, all 110 modules for the NEOM Green Hydrogen project will be completed and handed over in mid-2025. Countries around the world are making concentrated efforts to fulfill their commitments on achieving net zero emissions. As part of a collective endeavor to enhance carbon absorption, Vietnam has received over $41 million from the World Bank through the sale of forest carbon credits. This amount is equivalent to 80% of the committed funding under the Emission Reductions Payment Agreement. The initial implementation of the agreement in Vietnam has proven successful, making a significant contribution to forest management and conservation.
Over the past 10 years, the majority of ethnic households in Cha Mang village, Thừa Thiên Huế province, have collaborated to protect 560 hectares of local forests. As a result, each household receives approximately $100 annually for their contributions to forest environmental services.
Locals here rely heavily on forests for their livelihood. Their awareness of forest protection has been raised since the start of the Community Forest Protection Program.
The annual revenue from environmental services in the province has quadrupled to $3.2 million. The local community will receive an additional $7,800 from the sales of carbon credits.
This initiative helps local residents improve their livelihoods, diversify their sources of income, and develop rural areas with a modern touch.
The area currently has over 3.1 million hectares of forest land, which accounts for more than 21% of the country's total forest area. This region serves as a key foothold of carbon credit trade in the country.
We will continue to protect special use, protective, and natural forests. Our primary commitments for emission reduction have always included promoting research on plant varieties to strengthen the cycle of planted forests, increase forestry productivity and carbon content, and improve livelihoods for vulnerable communities.
From 2010 to 2020, the average emission from forestry decreased by half, going from 69 million tons to 30 million tons. This demonstrates the successful outcomes of Vietnam's forest conservation program.
The Tourism Development Plan of Cà Mau Province identifies U Minh Hạ National Park and Cà Mau National Park as valuable tourism hotspots with great potential for high returns. Numerous unique tourism products have been developed in harmony with the natural landscape to provide tourists with exceptional travel experiences.
Spanning over 63,000 hectares, the Cà Mau mangrove forest is the second largest of its kind in the world, following the renowned Amazon forest in South America. As visitors navigate through the rustling forest on canoes, they are treated to a picturesque view of ancient mangrove forests and invigorating fresh air.
I was pleasantly surprised to be able to walk through forests and discover natural scenery along the way.
After 4 years of operation, almost 50,000 domestic and international visitors have participated in the tour that ventures through the forest of Cà Mau National Park. In the near future, additional routes will be opened and more resorts will be built to accommodate an increasingly curious group of tourists.
The current natural conditions of Cà Mau Cape National Park are favorable for increased tourism activities. This is the appropriate direction to follow, as it has the least impact on nature.
Meanwhile, visitors to U Minh Hạ National Park are in for a special experience, a Melaleuca forest ecosystem floating on peat soil. This park is the habitat of various rare birds and animals listed in the Vietnam Red Data Book of Rare and Endangered Species. With its unique natural conditions, the park offers a perfect green setting for seasonal getaways. Currently, the authorities of Cà Mau province have plans to develop both natural parks into major tourist attractions.
We will develop products and services to create a new tourism brand for the province. This brand will leverage the advantages of the natural ecosystem while minimizing the industrial impact on nature and ensuring the livelihoods of the local people.
Visitors coming to Cà Mau province are encouraged to experience some of the most famous native tours in order to enjoy the beauty of the southernmost land of the country.
Raising children is a long journey that requires a lot of effort and love from parents. For families having children with a cerebral palsy, this journey becomes even more difficult. In the following report, let's listen to the story of such a journey of a mother encouraging her son with a cerebral palsy to overcome the disease.
A week after he was born, he had a high fever. The doctor diagnosed that the child had a blood infection and jaundice. Only a blood transfusion could save his life. At his 3rd month, when he was examined again, the doctor diagnosed him with cerebral palsy.
The mother's heart was broken when she knew that her child had cerebral palsy. The child cannot develop, move, or speak normally. In order for her child to be able to call his mother's name, Phie and her son had to spend 9 long years practicing. And for the boy to be able to practice riding and walk on his own feet, a lot of sweat and tears were shed.
I had to use elastic bandages to wrap his hand and the pen. Then I help him practice writing each letter. I remember the times when I tried to teach my child to walk. He was in pain and cried so much, but he still tried very hard. By the age of 12 or 13, he took his first step. I feel very happy because he was able to do it.
Muốn mở một phòng livestream mà.
During the past 20 years, they hasn't missed any training sessions. It is impossible to describe all the efforts and sacrifices of both of them. Now, the boy not only knows how to do personal stuff and play on the computer, but also achieves many achievements in school.
He is very smart. He absorbed the lesson very quickly. It was hard to hear what he speaks, but in math he does very well. He receives excellent certificate every year.
The efforts and achievements that her child has achieved make Phie even more hopeful for the future. Her child can be independent and integrate into life. Now, her son is working as an office worker at Vietnam Cerebral Palsy Family Association in Hanoi. He now can make his own videos to post on social networks. For a mother like Phie, it is truly a huge happiness.
Coming up next in our world news, EU warns of huge risk of terrorist attacks. And EU leading the way to global adoption of emission pricing. The European Union is at a significant risk of terrorist attacks during the Christmas period, according to a warning from the European Home Affairs Commissioner Ylva Johansson. She made this statement on Tuesday prior to a meeting of EU Home Affairs ministers in Brussels. Johansson linked the increased threat of attacks to the ongoing conflict in the Middle East and the resulting polarization. In response, the EU has pledged an additional 30 million euros to support member countries in protecting places of worship. Since the start of the Hamas-Israel conflict on October the 7th, several European countries have reported a surge in anti-Semitic crimes. At the 28th conference of the parties to the United Nations Convention on Climate Change, or COP28, European Union leaders urged the international community to broaden global carbon pricing in order to boost global climate change response budgets. The EU also reaffirmed its dedication to assisting countries in enhancing their domestic carbon markets.
Many countries are implementing a price on carbon to help achieve their climate goals. This can be done through a carbon tax or an emissions trading system. The emissions trading system has been successful in reducing emissions by 40% since 2005. During COP28, the President of the European Commission called on economies around the world to join this system.
We must phase out fossil fuels and we must reduce. The European Union has peaked already. We have reduced emissions and we are on track to overshoot our target for 2030. And we just adopted a law to drastically reduce methane emissions.
Earlier this year, the European Commission introduced the Zero Emissions Industry Act, which identifies 8 sectors of strategic importance.
We stand beside developing countries and are aware of our solidarity and responsibility. We support engagement in terms of partnership to achieve a just energy transition.
The EU has set a goal of tripling renewable energy output and doubling energy efficiency as part of its efforts to eliminate the use of fossil fuels. The latest initiative in implementing this plan is the outline of the European Hydrogen Bank.
French Foreign Minister Catherine Colonna stated on Tuesday that France is willing to provide a haven for South Pacific islanders who are threatened by climate change. She also mentioned that France is open to receiving resettlement requests from South Pacific nations facing the threat of rising sea levels, similar to Australia's recent agreement with Tuvalu. Earlier, Australia announced a plan that would initially allow up to 280 Tuvaluans to migrate to Australia each year in order to escape the rising seas and increased storms caused by climate change. According to the latest data released by the United Nations Development Programme, the risk of coastal flooding has increased over the past 20 years due to rising sea levels. This has left an additional 14 million people in vulnerable coastal communities. By 2100, this risk is projected to increase 5-fold, affecting nearly 73 million people. And now let's take a look at the weather forecast. And that's it for this edition of VTV News. Thank you very much for watching. To rewatch our program, you can download VTVgo from App Store or Google Play, or tune in our YouTube channel at youtube.com/VTV4Go. Goodbye for now.